Unique people leading unique lives shape and inform Iowa City. This community is enhanced by these women and men who live in our midst, working, teaching, creating. Welcome to a series of conversations with people who have stories to tell. Join my guests and me, Ellen Buchanan, in a series of interviews called One of a Kind. There are two important facts about my guest, Darrel Wyrick. He has made his mark on the University of Iowa, and he is a Hawkeye through and through. For 35 years, Darrel has been the president, the only president, of the U of I Foundation. The foundation, founded in 1956, has grown in assets from $100,000 to over $500 million. Under his leadership and vision, the foundation has become a state-of-the-art charitable organization, earning a national reputation for information technology innovation and for having positive relations with the rest of the university. A native of Fort Madison, Iowa, Darrel came to the university in 1951 to study chemical engineering. Graduating with a BS in '56 and an MS in '57, Darrel moved to the Twin Cities to work as an engineer. After 4 years, he returned to Iowa City to become the U of I Foundation's first full-time employee. Currently, there are 80 foundation staff members. His many awards include Honorary Iowa Letterman given in 1991 by the National Iowa Letterman's Club, the Distinguished Alumni Award for Service in 1992. He was named Hawk of the Year in 1996 and was the Grand Marshal of the 1997 Homecoming Parade. His other commitments include Director of the U of I Research Foundation, President of the U of I Facilities Corporation, a member of both the President's Club of the University and the Advisory Committee for the U of I Museum of Art, and he's a member of the Development Council of the College of Engineering. Two major events are occurring in 1998. The foundation will move in the spring to its new facility, the Leavitt Center for University Advancement, and Darrel will retire from the presidency of the foundation July 1st. However, he plans to stay on as President Emeritus and Major Gifts Officer. Darrel and his wife Shirley raised 3 children in Iowa City, Craig, Anne, and Lane, and they have one granddaughter, Jessica. Welcome, Darrel, to One of a Kind.
It's great to be here. It really is.
I know your story begins in Fort Madison in October of 1933. You were the first one in your family to go to college, I read.
Yes, I was the first in either side of my family, and my parents always told me when I was growing up, starting grade school, someday you're going to go to Iowa City. They called it Iowa City instead of the University of Iowa because that's what everybody did in those days. And it became preordained, I guess, that I would become a Hawkeye. And then when I was 8 years old in the fall of 1943, my brother-in-law played football for Iowa.
Oh.
And so at age 8, I came to every Iowa football game, home football game that year. And so I got an early start to being a Hawkeye. And when I graduated from high school, of course, it was automatic that I would go to Iowa City, as my parents had said.
And when you came here, did you think you were going into engineering? Was that your path you were going to take?
I thought I was going into engineering, and I enrolled in liberal arts, as many did at that time to start with. But by the end of the first semester, Carl Kammermeyer, the head of the chemical engineering department, who always tried to recruit the top pre-engineering students to chemical engineering, convinced me that I should become a chemical engineer. So I went into engineering then the second semester of my freshman year, and after 5 years obtained the bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, and then after an additional year a master's degree in chemical engineering, all under the tutelage of Carl Kammermeyer.
He had an influence on you, quite an influence on you, did he not?
Yes, he was far more than a teacher. Carl also was an advisor to all of us in a very personal way. He taught you how to interview for jobs, told you what to wear, how to talk to interviewers, what was important to accomplish what you wanted to do when you were interviewing. He taught us more about life, all of the chemical engineers, than he did in some cases technically. And so he was very influential on my life, as well as many other chemical engineers of that era. And Carl Kammermeyer is still living in Iowa City. He's not in good health, but he's revered by those who return to the campus from the Chemical Engineering Alumni Body.
Now, there's a story I know, how you met Shirley. People love to know how spouses meet when there's, and I know you have a good story. Tell us about that.
Well, I was in my junior and senior year in engineering, and I was editor of the Transit, which at that time was the engineering students magazine. It was sent to all alumni, but it was edited and produced by the students. Shirley was a freshman working in the office of Tom Farrell in the College of Engineering, who was head of the engineering writing department, technical writing department. And I walked into the office one day to pick up something, and I noticed Shirley and thought, this is maybe somebody I ought to get to know better. So I go back repeatedly to the office and ask if Professor Farrell was there or Professor Jix Lloyd-Jones was there. And they weren't, I knew, but I'd get a chance to chat with Shirley. So I got my courage up and said, would you like to go for a tour of the Transit office? And she said, yes, I would. And so I took her down to a closet, which was the size of the Transit office. It didn't take long to show her that, but it gave me an opportunity to say, maybe we should someday, maybe you would like to get together with me and we'd go on a little date some afternoon. And so I said, how about Saturday? And she said, yes. And so I gathered up all the scrap copper from the plates of the printing plates, which we did every once in a while, and we went to Salzman's junkyard to sell copper plates. And that was our first, date, was to go to the junkyard. And so we had quite a start.
Quite a start.
Yeah, it was quite a start. And but sure, the funny thing is that Shirley said she went back to the dorm after that afternoon and told a friend of hers, I've met the man I'm going to marry. So she was determined too.
That's a great story. And then how long after that junkyard date did you get married?
We were it's about 2 years later, 2.5 years later. We, as you remember, everyone got married between semesters in that time, and the semester was late January and early February, the semester change, and so we got married in February 4, 1956, and our honeymoon was to Midland, Michigan, of all places. I went on an interview trip to see Dow Corning and Dow Chemical, and so we went from very cold weather here to just terrible weather in Michigan, but that was our honeymoon. But later we went on an interview trip to New Orleans and one to New York, and so we made up for it. Right.
You made up for it. How did you get, Darrel, from engineering to fundraising?
Well, we chose to live in Minneapolis, and I chose my job basically on where I wanted to live. And we moved to Minneapolis, and I worked for Archer Daniels Midland Company, ADM company, that's well known here now. And I was a volunteer. I immediately was named the president of the Twin Cities Alumni Club. And while being president of the Alumni Club and having various activities that I was responsible for, I also conducted the first telephone campaigns or telefunds for the university. Recruited a group of volunteers, got the telephone office to loan us 20 or 30 phones a night, and so that started the telephone campaigns for the University of Iowa Foundation. And Lauren Hickerson, longtime alumni director at the university, who was the acting director of the foundation as well, asked if I would come to Iowa City and become the first employee of the foundation and to take that telephone system on a nationwide basis. Shirley and I agonized because it meant a substantial cut in salary, and we wondered how we could make it because Craig was on the way. But the best decision we ever made was to come to work for the University of Iowa Foundation.
And you were a staff of one.
Right. We had a half-time secretary, a half-time bookkeeper, and me when we started, and it's been quite growth. But I would also say that it was slow at first because we just had to bootstrap ourselves, be self-supporting, and bootstrap the operation.
So here you are, the director, and you, over these 35 years, you've been with 6 different presidents and 3 different interim presidents. How was that for you as the director? I mean, what made it go smoothly, or did it?
Well, all the presidents, I've enjoyed working with all of them, and it made certain that I've had a good relationship with them, as well as the entire foundation, a good relationship with the presidents. They're all different, starting with Virgil Hansher, of course, who was president when I arrived in '62 and was president until '64. They all have different personalities, different backgrounds, different techniques, and different abilities, I'd say. But they all have been right for the time. Virgil Hansher would have been very uncomfortable being president when Howard Bowen and Sandy Boyd were in days of student unrest. And Howard Bowen was a builder, and he was here at a time when money for buildings was, even from the federal government, was actually fairly easy to come by. And the stringent times of the agricultural depression, they wouldn't have, he would not have been comfortable with that at all. So even the 3 interim presidents, I've had a good relationship with all of them. I respect them all a lot, and they were all right for the time, which I think is the key aspect.
What you've, looking back these 35 years, you've had endowed chairs, you've got these buildings that are just under, you know, the business school, the Carver, the Museum of Art, et cetera, and now the Leavitt Center and the engineering building remodeling project. Is there one that you think was kind of a turning point for the university in giving, or have they all had a special place in your heart?
Well, they all have a special place in my heart, and all were for a different purpose, and some were much larger than other projects. But our first capital campaign for the Museum of Art is the one that I think was helped the foundation turn the corner and get into big gift fundraising. Now, raising $1,400,000 for a new art museum sounds like a pittance in some ways now compared to the kind of numbers we talk about. But $1 million at that time in the life of the university and the life of the foundation was a lot of money. The faculty and staff stepped forward very generously, as did the people of Iowa City and the business community and professional community. And then we went statewide with that campaign and did raise $1,400,000 to build that beautiful original part of the museum, which is priceless now, but to think that happened. That was a springboard into capital campaigning for the foundation, so everything that's followed since, I think, is built on what we learned about our audiences and about fundraising the Museum of Art campaign. And I, because my wife Shirley's an artist, as you know, I have a very, very strong personal interest in art, so I think that the museum strengthened that, and the art museum also set the tone for developing the whole west side of the river, down along the river there, into the arts campus, and so it was a landmark in the history of the university, the history of the arts of the university, as well as the University of Iowa Foundation.
Boy. Tell me, what do you consider your greatest strengths as a fundraiser? How have you developed the fundraising here at Iowa?
Well, and probably my personal trait as a fundraiser is that I take the long view. Fundraising, a lot of it's timing, and there are many major donors who cannot make today a major gift, but who will be able to down the line a few months later, a few years later, maybe many years later. And I think maintaining relationships with all of those people and working with them over the period of time and being understanding about the fact that timing is important, I think is a key. And so I've always felt that I've developed very strong personal relationships, and many of my very, very best friends are people who are the major contributors to the university, and who've been strong supporters of the foundation. Whether I'm on a business call or a personal call is very difficult to tell many times, because these people are, I've made the business kind of my life, and I very much enjoy these relationships with the people. And people always know I'm a fundraiser, and that's what I'm, and I'm proud of that. I still call it, a lot of people call themselves advancement officers or development officers. I still say I'm a fundraiser, and that's my job, but it's also a labor of love for me.
So one of the best parts of the job, besides enhancing the university, are the friendships you've made with the fundraising. What have been some of the biggest challenges or frustrations? There's got to be quite a few of both of those in the job.
Well, the biggest challenge is to serve the university as completely as possible in all of their fundraising needs. And when I started, we had one general fund called the Old Development Fund, which was our annual fund. We received very few earmarked gifts for specific purposes. Now 99+% of our gifts come in earmarked for whatever the donor is most interested in. And in order to raise more money for all of those areas, it takes additional personnel and technology and so forth. And so without, while being self-supporting, to be able to add staff and technology and support that will help us to raise money for all these units has been a struggle. But we've tried to step forward and offer that kind of help to the entire university as soon as it became apparent that there was potential for fundraising. Now, there are projects and programs in the university for which it would be very difficult to raise private money, and we need to work with the university administration so that they find other ways to fund those programs and projects rather than private gifts. So that's always a method of interpretation, because everyone thinks that certain of the big givers should support their program, every program on the campus.
I read a very nice compliment about the foundation, that often foundations get kind of full of themselves, and that Iowa's foundation has managed to exist for the benefit of the whole university. I want to pass that on to you. That's been good that you've done that, Darrel.
Well, and that's on purpose. There are some foundations who have become actually adversaries of the administration of the university, where the board of directors and maybe the staff decide that they'll decide what's needed for the university and raise money for those things. And I've never wanted that to occur and would never allow it to occur. When we recruit board members of the foundation, we want people who will say to the university, President, tell us what you need and how we can help you get it. And that's very, very important. So I've been very much interested in maintaining not a very good relationship, and also never thinking that just because I work for the board of directors of the foundation, that the president of the university is not the person who provides a guiding light for me and for the foundation.
This spring, 1998, you're going to be moving into this spectacular new building. It has a wonderful view of the river and City Park. You must be bursting your buttons. It's such a wonderful thing that's going to be happening.
Well, it's one of the highlights of my career, obviously, and kind of the culmination of my career. I've always been very concerned that the Alumni Association and the Foundation stay together and be housed together, because there are times when Alumni Associations and Foundations have political problems on many campuses. And I've always felt if you're living with each other, there's a much better chance, at least, that you'll get along well and work together, each with its own mission, but working for the benefit of the university. The NeuseLevitt Center is going to provide us with a tremendous home for the foundation and the Alumni Association, the university's Division of Alumni Records. But about 40% of the space in that building is going to be used for meetings and events and dinners and luncheons and conferences, all that have relationship to the advancement programs of the university. So Can
you give me an example?
Well, for instance, they're all the visiting alumni groups that come to the campus that can be used for economic promotion of the community and of the university. There'll be many events hosted by the president of the university or the vice presidents that can be held in that space, in addition to housing all of the fundraising activities of the alumni and the alumni activities of the foundation and the alumni association. The university is woefully short of that kind of space of a first-class nature, and so the decision was that the foundation should finance and build a center with all of these capabilities, and so it's the university's Center for University Advancement, and the foundation and the association will be pleased to be living, so to speak, in the office block, and then across the top of the building and then the rotunda. That is primarily what we call the public entertainment spaces and meeting spaces.
And it should be, you should be moving into it in March?
Hopefully by the end of March, we will, the foundation and the Alumni Association will move into the office block. The rotunda and the upper level, fourth level, may not be completed entirely by then, but hopefully they'll finish up shortly thereafter. And our plan is to dedicate the building on May 9th, 1998. So time flies. It'll be here before we know it.
And then the building that you're vacating, the back part of the art museum then will take over the rest of the building.
The Leavitt Center is the completion of a 20-plus year cycle, in that we fought hard when we were housed in the Memorial Union, both the Foundation and Alumni Association, in the late, all up from the 50s and 60s and in the early 70s. And we fought hard to say, when we add the Carver wing to the Museum of Art, which was funded by a gift from Roy Carver to the Foundation, let's also build an alumni center attached to it, but design it in a way, have the same architect do it, so it would be easily convertible to museum space at some time in the future when we were asked, when we outgrew the space. And at that time the agreement was the university would provide us with a new space, we would move, and then the museum could move into the alumni center space. Well, now it's necessary, of course, but reality is that the foundation and the Alumni Association have to finance the new Leavitt Center. But with our move up the river, what we thought, what we planned would happen is happening, and that is the Museum of Art is going to expand into the Alumni Center space, substantially expanding their space for exhibitions and for storage and for educational programs and so forth. And so this has come full cycle now that that space is going to be used for that purpose. So
a lot of exciting things are going to be happening.
I feel very fortunate that that did happen during my tenure, because it was something we said to the regents. We promised that to the regents back in 1970, and it finally came true.
I want to, besides being a fundraiser extraordinary, you are a husband. We talked about your wife Shirley, and you're also a father of these 3 children. Tell me a little bit where they are and what they're doing.
Right. Well, I wanted to mention that Shirley is also a graduate of the university. She has 3 degrees, 1 in occupational therapy and 2 in art. She's a sculpture major. But in speaking of my children, her influence has felt very strongly on them. Not many engineers in the group. Our younger son Lane, after spending some years in Hollywood as production assistant, and he felt that he should move back to Iowa City, and he's been back in Iowa City for about 3 years now and has his own videography business. And is doing very well. Was married this fall to Angela Odom, and they are doing very well, and we feel very fortunate. So and Lane has a degree in film and video from the University Communication Studies Department, and Angela is a music major from Iowa. Our daughter Ann is a graphic designer, primarily a computer designer, she lives in Santa Monica now, and Ann does a lot of design for the Disney Corporation and a company called Saban, and she designs the sales packages and display packages and promotional materials for merchandise which are sold by various companies, like she did a lot of the designs for the merchandise that accompanied the recent re-release of 101 Dalmatians, and so. And Craig has been since he graduated from the film studies department here at the university in 1984. He's been in Hollywood, so to speak, and making his way, and he's done very well. He was on the original crew and original staff of Coach, and a lot of the shots you see on the TV program Coach come from the Iowa campus, and now he is right now in the process of getting ready to film the pilot and the first episodes of a show that he's producer of, and the show is going to star Tom Selleck and Ed Asner, and will be on hopefully in February. And so he's done very, very well and has accommodated very well to living in Los Angeles, which isn't easy. And he and his wife Annette live up close to Mulholland Drive above the city and overlooking Studio City. And so they've done well, and they have our first grandchild, Jessica, born September 6th. So we have many reasons to want to go to California often, too.
I know you, like I mentioned in the introduction, that you're retiring July 1st, but you're really not going to retire. Tell me what you're looking forward to and what will your responsibilities be?
Well, I'm retiring from, or stepping aside from the presidency of the University of Iowa Foundation, giving up those management and administrative responsibilities, which are many, many. And I'm going to become president emeritus. That has already been decided. And I will stay on and work part-time for the foundation, entirely as a major gifts officer without any administrative or management responsibilities. And frankly, will probably be as productive, big gift-wise, as I have been in the past, working full-time as administrator and then squeezing in the time I need for fundraising itself. So I'm looking forward to that change. If my successor is in place by July 1, that's when that will happen.
Now, you've had some wonderful trips with University of Iowa alums. Will you be able to continue doing that abroad, the trips abroad?
I'm not certain whether that'll work out, but we have had, every other year, we've had the President's Club, our highest level honor organization for contributors. We've had a tour for President's Club members. All of them so far have been to Europe. They've been a wonderful opportunity for major givers to the university to get together and to spend some time traveling. And we've made these very deluxe tours, very well planned and plotted. And so last summer we were in the Baltic Sea with Mary Sue and Ken Coleman, and went to the Scandinavian capitals. So I may or may not be a part of those tours, but I'm sure they'll continue because each one seems to get just a little bit better than the previous one. And I know you and John were with us in Greece and Turkey, and that was a memorable trip.
Well, and then the one you were, when you got stuck on the train or you were late, that was some trip.
Yeah, this is
with Hunter.
We had a steam train ride, which was estimated to be like 4 hours, and it took 8 or 9 hours from Berlin to Warsaw. And so our guests were getting a little bit antsy about all of this because the members of the International Riding Program from Poland were all waiting for us at our hotel. And so we opened up the club car and bought everything they had, and kept people reasonably happy until we got to Warsaw. Then when we got to Warsaw, we found that by computer error they had sold all our rooms, so we didn't have any rooms, and most of us had to motor about 100 miles south to a crummy Russian-built hotel for the night.
And I heard you never lost your cool, that you were...
Well, I'm not, yeah, I may not have lost my cool. Yeah, I was calm, but there were a lot of people, some people who weren't very calm. But I would say this, Iowans roll with the punches. And if you can ask somebody that was on that trip, why do you remember? They remember the night we went to Pujavi. Because adversity makes bonds people.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we're going to end on that positive note about Iowans. My guest on One of a Kind has been the U of I Foundation President Darrel Wyrick. He has helped create one of the best college fundraising foundations in the nation. Average alumni gift is one of the largest in the Big Ten, thanks to Darrel, his staff, and loyal alums. Darrel's love of the university and the state of Iowa is legendary. One fan commented that, quote, Wyrick has worked quietly and effectively behind the scenes to ensure that the university not only survives, but thrives, end quote. Another fan said, what stands out is a man extraordinarily committed to the university, end quote. Words to describe Darrel are loyal, intelligent, self-effacing, forthright, honest, dedicated, and very, very funny. Our community, the university, and the state of Iowa are very fortunate that Darrel Wyrick chose to work for and promote the University of Iowa. And in Darrel's own words, go Hawks! Darrel Wyrick is one of a kind.